The Socio-Economic Rights Institute and Community Law Centre has published its report into housing in South Africa. The report analyses perceptions and practice around housing demand and allocation, looking at policies and processes operating at national, provincial and local level. Well, to tell us what the report found, we're joined by SERI Research and Advocacy Officer Edward Molopi. Edward, good evening, and thank you so much for your time. Now, there of course are so many issues when it comes to housing in this country, and I think it has been exacerbated by COVID-19. Do we have coherent policy right now that is driving the approach of government to this problem?
Good evening, and good evening to your listeners and viewers, Kathy. And thank you for having us. I think so. We have written a report that you have just indicated, but this is actually a report that we written a while back, a couple of years back, actually. And what we have seen there, and it's still consistent and still very true to this very day, that there is, of course, there is a national housing allocation database that exists, but there is this notion of a waiting list, which is often presented as though it is a coherent waiting list, which consists of people with alphabets maybe going in from A to B, or you actually have a number that you're allocated to. But that's not exactly how housing is allocated in South Africa, and in various municipalities. There are a number of factors that come into play in the allocation of housing. So this list, this notion of a waiting list is one that doesn't hold.
Some of the problems that are being experienced today, you had already highlighted in the research that you've done in prior years. And just to look and highlight some of those issues that you've raised, is the unanticipated problems included, peripheral residential development, poor quality of products and settlements, and the limited secondary low-income housing market. Again, these are issues that you identified already in a report that you did several years ago. What has been done from the Department of Housing side to ensure that their approach also incorporates some of the weaknesses of the programs?
Well, I think there are a number of problems here, right? Firstly is that the RDP housing provision in itself is actually declining, even though there is an increase in the demand. And then, I think secondly is that aligned to these allocation of housing is that there is, of course, a fascination or almost a let's put it as there is a fascination with providing a top structure housing, whereas there are other programs that are aimed at ensuring that people are actually able to gain secure tenure in where they live, in informal settlements especially, where they are able to get services and infrastructure in places where they are currently located. So one of these programs would be the upgrading of informal settlements program. So the question, back to your question, Kathy, is that although these policies exist in paper, they are highly underutilized. And I think you played a clip there from the MEC, which indicates that there is severe underperformance from the state when it comes to these issues. So I think from the time that we have done the reports and up until now that we are speaking about this, there's still a lot more that needs to be done. So and we can't say that there is significant developments there.
Of course, taking an approach that was developed 5, maybe even 10 years ago may not necessarily speak to the current problems and how the issues around housing have effectively evolved. So when we look at the current plan of which the department is working, is that still fit for purpose?
Look, I mean, the problem hasn't really been that there's no plan. Plans are always there, and they are good on paper. In most cases, the plans are there, they are good, but the problem comes with the implementation of those plans. So that's where the problem is going to be. So we can look at it on paper, and we'll all agree that this is a good plan. But then when it comes to the implementation, then the results are not there.
What does this mean for people who are going through the problems of not having a place to call home, not having land to be able to build homes on, even if it is just building whatever structures they can for themselves?
What it means is that people continue to live in precarious situations. Very often they are then put at risk of evictions. We've also seen now with COVID-19 that it also have highlighted some of these needs that people have, which links to water and sanitation. And so what it basically means is that people continue to live in desperate conditions while policies are not being implemented.